So we're going to finish up with Jackson this week. Andrew Jackson, uh, President of the United States, 1828. He won the 1828 election. He lost the 1824 election to John Quincy Adams. It was actually a situation where Jackson, he wanted to extend voting rights. It was called Jacksonian democracy. He wanted to extend voting rights to the common man, not just wealthy landowners. He was able to do so in 1828. He won pretty convincingly, and he gains and wins the presidential election of 1828. Lost in 1824, but had the most votes, electoral and popular, but didn't matter. Now, today we're going to talk about his Indian Removal Act and his Native Americans and moving them and forcing them west of the Mississippi River. Okay, so the big question is what should be done with Native Americans? There were five civilized tribes. There was Cherokee, Creek, Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Seminole Indians who lived in the southeast states of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, and extended into some of the other Mississippi and southeastern states. And what happened was, should they assimilate? Should they leave their old ways? Should they become like white Europeans and become Americanized, to say? They thought they were uncivilized savages, most Americans. And, we looked at the Declaration of Independence. They call them, it is literally written in the United States Declaration of Independence. They call them merciless Indian savages. It is literally there. I showed you guys a video of all the Hollywood actors and actresses reading it. Actually had a Native American actor read that part of the United States Declaration of Independence, July 4th, 1776, the nation's birth certificate. So, we're 50 years in the future, right? We're 1776 to 40 years in the future, right? 50 years in the future. And now, obviously it is, the sentiments have not changed, and with westward expansion, basically they want Native Americans land. That's what it boils down to, okay? So, east of the Mississippi, 100, roughly 100,000 Native Americans live east of the Mississippi River. There were a lot more than that, obviously, before Columbus lands in 1492 and then 1607 Jamestown, and colonization pushes Native Americans west, okay? And we're going to talk about manifest destiny, the idea that America would spread from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And obviously this policy, very bad for Native Americans, okay? So one more time, the five civilized tribes, you got to know that. It's going to be the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, and Seminole Indians. You can see them all right here, okay? You're going to have to know that's going to be on the quiz, okay? Sequoia comes up with the Cherokee alphabet. Cherokees have their own newspaper. A lot of your Native Americans were assimilating. They were converting to Christianity. And the Cherokee had their own constitution. So the Cherokee Indians, they were civilized. They were being assimilated. That didn't matter. Jackson had a policy. His policy was moving all Native Americans off of desirable land that is going to be obviously plantation and farmland. It's in the South. Okay. And even if you wanted to assimilate, as this picture shows, if you look at the individual in the picture, okay, assimilation would mean that you're going to cut your hair. You're going to remove any type of, Native American dress, and you are going to wear westernized clothing, as you can see here. Shirt, tie. Before that, they're wearing deer skin. They're wearing animal pelts. Well, they don't want them to do that anymore. They want them to look like quote unquote Americans. Okay? And then Jackson declares that you cannot have your own sovereign government within America. Okay? And then the big hit comes. In 1828, gold is discovered on Cherokee land in Georgia. Well, folks, as you know how greed works, not only do they want their land to expand plantations and cotton and tobacco plantations, when there's gold involved, people get a thing called gold fever. Okay? What they're going to do is there's going to be laws passed, state laws passed, to be able to take the land of Native Americans. Okay? Obviously, this is not going to be popular among Native Americans. And in 1830, the Indian Removal Act is going to call for complete removal of Native Americans and the 5 civilized tribes from the southeastern United States of America, current southeastern United States of America, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi. Okay? And they are going to move them west of the Mississippi River into current day Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma is the big one. Okay? There's obviously going to be strong opposition on the parts of Quakers, okay, and many other religious groups who see Native Americans as their own civilized beings who should be able to live freely without people stealing their land. Okay? Obviously, the suffering on Native Americans is going to be incalculable. Okay? They're not going to be able to calculate is what that means. Okay? Here is what it's going to look like. Okay? Now, this didn't just happen in the South. It happened in the North. It happened in the Illinois, Iowa, and Wisconsin territories. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that. But when you're looking, you can see a lot of this area is forest in the green. Okay? Some of it also has land that can be cleared. You can clear the land. If it's flat, you can farm. Okay? So, the wild thing is you can see that the Seminole were in Florida, the Cherokee, North Carolina, well, part of Tennessee, South Carolina, not quite in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Chickasaw, Choctaw, they're going to be in current day Mississippi. They are going to be forcefully moved. The Sauk and the Sauk Indians are going to be moved as well, and Fox. All right. So all of these tribes are going to be forcibly moved. We focus on these 5 civilized tribes when we're talking Indian Removal Act. Yes, this happened up here in northern Illinois, okay, current day Wisconsin and Iowa, but we're going to focus on these 5 civilized tribes. Okay. All right. So current lands would be negotiated in Georgia, North Carolina, parts of South Carolina, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and they would be moved to Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. So some of the tribes are going to move west. They're going to willfully move, okay? So it's crazy. This is crazy, actually. It's really crazy because in 1832, there was a Supreme Court case. Okay? And what it did was it actually gave a victory to the Cherokee. That the Georgia law was unconstitutional, as you see right here. They actually won. Okay? Jackson literally violated the U.S. Constitution. He literally violated federal law. He literally violated a Supreme Court decision. Folks, this guy could have been impeached for this. Like one of the most impeachable offenses ever by a president. Okay, no, of course it didn't happen because people wanted the land. Okay, Jackson actually said, you know what? Go ahead, Chief Justice Marshall, enforce it. Okay, make us not remove them. Okay, and it was actually crazy because they were going to claim the land almost by eminent domain. That means like the government can claim your land for things. Okay, if there's a superhighway and they want to build there, okay, they got to give you a fair market value for a house. So effectively, what Georgia was going to do is they were going to claim the land by eminent domain. Okay, well, the Supreme Court said no, the Georgia law does not apply to these Native Americans. Andrew Jackson chooses to he violates a Supreme Court order, and as you know, guys, they are the end all be all. They have judicial review. They have the final say on everything. Okay, so the forced migration of Native Americans is going to be called the Trail of Tears. It is going to be overseen by General Winfield Scott. Over 30,000, okay, Native Americans are moved. 40,000 Native Americans are moved. Over 1/4 of them die along the way. Okay, this is called the Trail of Tears, the forced migration of Native Americans from the 5 civilized tribes in the southeast United States to Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. Is there Native American resistance? Of course there is, okay? Obviously, the Cherokee and Solly is going to try and he's going to try and leave. This is actually a painting of Solly and his sons. Okay, folks, if you don't know, the United States of America really likes to set examples. Okay, what they did. Okay, when Solly and his family tried to run, tried to resist, were shooting and killed 2 U.S. soldiers. Eventually they track down Solly, and they get Solly to he surrenders under the understanding that nothing's going to happen to my sons. Nothing's going to happen to my family. They execute Solly and the rest of his sons, all except for his youngest son. And the message there is any resistance will be dealt with swiftly and decisively. Okay? So everybody else sees that, they fall in line. The Seminoles are led by Osceola, Chief Osceola, and the Seminole Indians went deep into the Everglades, which is a huge swamp and lake area in the central part of the state of Florida. Okay? Eventually, Osceola, he is tricked into coming out and he's captured as well. Osceola dies in prison. Okay? What do a lot of other Native Americans do? They go deeper into the Everglades, and it's very difficult to find them for years to come. But the land that's usable in Florida by the United States of America, well, they don't care as long as they don't have to hear from them. Okay? Other resistance, Sauk Chief Blackhawk in northern Illinois. He is going to lead Sauk and Fox Indians, okay, back to their lands in Illinois. Okay, the U.S. Army is going to chase them into southern Wisconsin, current-day southern Wisconsin, and crush their resistance in the 1830s. All right, so quiz coming up this week. We're going to talk 5 civilized tribes. We're going to talk Trail of Tears. We're going to talk this map. We're going to talk current day Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. So, talk about Andrew Jackson's cruel policy of Indian removal, and the quiz I'll probably put the quiz on tomorrow sometime. I have classes coming up here in the next hour. If you got any questions, shoot me an email. We'll talk Jacksonian Indian Removal Act and the cruelty and brutality of the Americans moving Native Americans west, and how they're able to trick Native Americans and just blatantly take their land. So tricked a lot of the leaders into coming out that they would get to keep their land, they would be able to live. Not the case.